Oh, hello, Studio 108 community. Lisa Turner and I are here. This is our take two. We were interrupted. So we are going with our flow today.
Yeah.
We're super excited about the Venus.
We are.
We're excited about the new moon.
Yes.
We're excited about the eclipses coming up and the workshop that is going to help you get really, really personal about that.
Yeah,
it's going to be a good fall.
It is. The Pre-Natal Eclipse workshop, it's more of like the woo-woo kind of workshop because, and I don't do a lot of woo-woo stuff. Like you would think like being an astrologer, like I would, but I really don't. I want to know, I want to have like evidence, right? Like if
you're a little woo-woo.
I'm a little woo-woo, a little, like I have to take on some of it.
Yeah.
The prenatal eclipse stuff, it's kind of fascinating how it all works. But I mean, we've hit the midpoint of the Venus cycle with the new moon, and I think it's like an important checkpoint, I guess, because June 20th is what started our Venus story. And I was telling Tracy prior to the camera, I'm very clear on what my Venus story is about. And, as you go through your Venus story and as you go through July and as we've gone through, start of August, the things in which we started or the decisions that we made, this is the checkpoint where you might start to see a reversal or a change. I've had a lot of emergency clients. I need to talk to you. This is going on in my relationship, or I'm not sure, or should I? This is where you're going to notice the shift points.
Yeah.
This was the upset the apple cart.
Honestly, it's like when you're cooking something. Like home fries are so delicious. I love making home fries. But you have to sit there and flip them and flip them and flip them, wondering when they're going to be done. And this is like the point where you're like, okay, they're getting crispy. Now I can see they're softening up and there's going to be some results.
And you may decide that you didn't want the home fries. You thought you did, and now you don't. And this is what that key point, right? Because we're getting ready to shift. So we've been on this path, maybe we went back to things, maybe we, going back to things, or we reconsidered things, and now we're like, I don't know if this fits anymore, right? There's a change here, and that can bring on this sense of failure.
Yeah, well, how was it said? I was listening to a podcast today that had nothing to do with this, but was talking about the human mind's tendency. Like the human mind doesn't do over, doesn't change. Like for us to change our mind, it takes us something. And this new moon today is, and we're a little ahead of you guys when you're listening. This is like last week to you. But this new moon is square Uranus, which is a change.
Yeah.
And so this is like there's a shift in something, and something has to happen for us to change our mind. Otherwise, we keep saying the same things and thinking the same things and doing the same things and getting the same results. Something has to change.
Well,
yes,
and we can do this. I mean, specifically, we can do this in a relationship. We go back to the same people. I made a joke. I'm like, I keep marrying the same man.
Yeah.
And it's because it is where our comfort zone is. And I'm on this new kick of what's it called? I lost it on take 2. Our attachment style.
Yes.
I've been really into this attachment style, and like all of these big light bulbs and shifts have kind of like happened for me. And it's all in this, it's all in this Venus story. And we can kind of put this into, our nodal stuff, this karma that we've kind of come into our life with, that we are working with. When we err or we go back to what is comfortable or back to what we know, we're not making those fundamental changes. And it's usually because of fear.
Yeah. Or a blind spot.
Yes.
Just the blind spot where you just can't quite see that. I remember sitting in therapy years ago thinking, like, what is the matter with this therapist? why doesn't she just tell me? Like, I can't see it. Like, what's her problem? Is she shitty or something? Like, just tell me. And of course she wasn't going to tell me. Of course it's their job to like help me discover it on my own. But like, I just know that there are blind spots that keep me spiraling in this thing. But Venus pulling back into this retrograde has been like a great opportunity to get sick of hearing yourself say it, to get sick of like
seeing your patterns, seeing your relationship patterns, seeing your spending habits. I know it's like hard to have relationships, but it really is, right? About our relationships, about how we feel about ourselves, our self-expression,
the things we desire. And I've been saying this, I don't know if anybody has been catching it and really like mulling it over, but we tend to think of Venus as Amazon Prime. She's just going to deliver us our love. She's just going to deliver us our wealth. She's just going to deliver us, you know, whatever it is that we're desiring. When really she's a teacher. And so there's going to be a messy process in that. There's going to be some. Yeah, that's what it's been.
It is
a happy summer.
Happy summer. But you know, as we move into this next part of it, you know, think about what it means to, I guess it's not about, I don't know if it's about think about what it means, but when you get to that place of, you know, getting what you want and not being happy, or feeling like a failure, or feeling like you can't express what you want, sitting in it.
That's
it's really like, and to not, I mean, we hear this a lot in yoga classes, you know, not to judge it. And I found this quote this morning that I was like really excited about, because it fit exactly what I wanted to really, the point I wanted to drive home. If you don't know him, he's an author. His name is Jeff Brown. I have one of his books that I really, really like. But he put a quote on this morning, and it said from his book, and he says, when you reach a stage where you can have a very dark and difficult experience without having to look on the bright side, then you know that you have made progress in your healing journey. Because one significant measure of your emotional health is our capacity to tolerate all of our experiences without jumping to reactive reframes. You reach a stage where you can stretch and accommodate the truth of your lived experience. You have enough light inside to own the shadow, and enough shadow inside to own the light. So, you know, when I think of that sense of light and dark, I think of the nodes. I think of where we are growing in consciousness and growing in spirituality, you know, and to be able to just be there.
And I mean, I'm thinking, like, you're speaking of it as this is happening to me, but I know relationship, how I am with other people, and I could be better at that for others. Like, I can hold space for people without being so quick to reframe. Offer a band-aid, offer advice. Like, I could be more mature in my side of that conversation, partnership, relationship relay. So can I put that quote at the bottom?
Absolutely. It's like
I hand that over to me.
It was just perfect.
It's his book called Hearticulations.
That is where it's at. That's where that quote is at.
Okay, I'm gonna put this in the comments for you guys, or in the description for you.
So so like this whole next cycle, because remember, we're not done with the Venus cycle. The Venus cycle doesn't truly, I mean, it moves forward, I think September 9th, and then we're not really full completely until the end of September. We're still working with this dynamic and what it means for us.
Yeah. And I really do feel like it's easy for me as someone who is kind of a teacher, and that's my archetype, and a mother, and that's another like leadership kind of archetype. But to like remember that Venus is showing me a mirror about me, and it's not my job to find. My husband said something and I was like, Venus retrograde. You know, like, I'm so good at that. I'm so good at seeing other people's stuff and kind of pointing the finger, but really to like take responsibility and be in my own experience, my own responsibility around it. All right, so we're going to talk about the nodes.
We're going to talk about the nodes. So, you know, my south node is in Aries in the first house, and my north node is in Libra in the seventh house. So kind of going up, we were just talking about relationships. Where my cup is overfilled is the me dynamic, right? What do you mean? I don't really care what you think. I want it, my way. And that process of 45 years of learning how to work with other people, learning how to be more diplomatic and seeing someone else's point of view. So now, and we're going to kind of go through a little bit of, it is kind of just like a watered down version. We're going to get into a little bit more detail at the eclipse workshop, the prenatal eclipse workshop. But just to give you an idea of the dynamics that we work with that south node and north node. So, the south node being the place in which has been overdeveloped, our subconscious is leaning towards those patterns, leaning towards, my impatience, of I'll just do it myself. I don't need your help. I'll just do it myself.
One Aries to another.
And learning how to be more cooperative, learning those skills, learning how to finesse. Sometimes, and there are many different ways astrologers look at nodes. So for me, it's about integration. You're looking at a whole chart, and you're looking at, being on a full spiritual journey.
Right.
Sometimes we get like really hard, I gotta work my north node, or I gotta let go of my south node. It's really not that,
It's oversimplified.
It is. We're just working together. Now I can definitely tell, when I'm leaning towards more of the impatience, I want it, my way, versus when I'm leaning more towards the cooperative side, and that's more just being aware. So we're going to go through the nodes, because then the north node is where we are growing. Like we're growing in patterns, or we're growing in habits, we're growing in skills, right?
Right.
Yes. If you have your chart, so again, I'm going to kind of just go through. If you have your chart and you have a planet at your south node, it will be more challenging to let go of those patterns, right? There's a fear of letting go. If you have a planet towards your north node, it's still creating that sense of fear of what's on that other side.
Gotcha. Can I look at your chart really quick?
Yeah.
I want to see where mine are, because I think I'm Sag, and what's opposite Sag?
Gemini.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
I don't need this anymore.
So at the end of the month, I think on the 29th. Okay, the 29th, we're going to do a prenatal eclipse workshop with class.
So when you say prenatal, I think I should be pregnant.
Yes, I was.
But that's not it.
No, it's the eclipse that happens prior to your birth.
Gotcha.
And it's the prenatal eclipse, and there's other things that we look at, but it's the karmic energy that we're working with. So it's like our soul is being called into this life to work with that specific energy.
Gotcha.
And what's kind of fun, and we're going to do this in class, people can fall at your prenatal eclipse. So if you have have you ever had you feel like you have soul connections, or there's people that kind of come into your life that you just, those really, my mentor, my prenatal eclipse sits at her Jupiter, right? So, you have these special bonds with people, and, it'll be fun during this workshop to look to see, these people in our life, do they fall at our prenatal eclipse?
Yeah.
As significant teachers. So that will be fun. But again, it's more that a prenatal eclipse is more about our soul journey, our karmic expressions. Like I said, that woo stuff. But if you have your chart and you have a north node in the first house and a south node in the seventh house, you are developing your personal power, right? So that north node is where you're growing. So you're growing into almost that Aries energy, pioneering individuality, and your south node is saying that you've relied a lot on people, right? So instead of needing someone to help you or needing a partnership, you're learning how to stand on your own 2 feet.
So you're growing towards that.
You're growing towards the individuality. You're growing towards,
But you do have strength in working with others.
You do, and you might find that it's the people in which you connect with that help you grow. But we have a tendency to want to stick with what we have.
Yeah, we do.
That north node.
Is there a time in the life where that like transition starts to trigger?
I don't know. I know that some charts, it's a lot in that Saturn return. There's a huge shift that happens at that Saturn return.
That would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense.
Because that's where you start to experience those hard lessons.
Yeah.
And then anytime anything, a planet, really those outer planets that trigger that nodal axis, that's a defining point as well. So it's always, there's always something going on usually. The south node in the first house, the north node in the seventh house, kind of just like I said, there's an overdeveloped self-centeredness.
That's not my house place.
It's my house place. And you're working towards being cooperative with others.
So you're very self-assured, and you've always been that way. But the lessons of your life are teaching you how to
get along with others.
How to get along with others better and keep that connection.
Which is interesting, right?
I
work with clients, I never would have thought that, but I've always been, I'm working my way slowly.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So your north node in the second house, your south node in the eighth house, the north node or the second house is about personal resources, attracting power, attracting money. That south node in the eighth house is you've relied maybe too much on other people's money and resources. And now you got to learn how to make your own. My son has this placement. And, he has made comments as now he's going to college. I'm looking forward to making my own money. I'm looking forward not to be dependent upon my family, right? So just, and he's only 18, but seeing him start to pull his way into that north node is pretty awesome. Your south node now in the second house and your north node in the eighth house, you are you're learning the patterns of, you've gotten everything, right? You have this material gain. You came into this life of knowing how to make money or, having a lot of assets. And, the eighth house, we're changing, we're transforming. How are you giving, right? In those second and eighth houses, finance is very much, part of it because it's the money house, but it's also self-worth. So if you're strong in that, maybe you teach others how to do that. So it's that transforming dynamic. Your north node in the third house, the south node in the ninth house. Is that what yours were?
No.
Or yours are flipped?
Mine are 1, 2, 3, fourth, maybe fourth.
So you're the fourth. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Gemini's my fourth house, I think.
Okay.
North Aquarius rising, does that make about sense?
It does.
So, yeah.
The north node in the third house, the south node in the ninth house. The third house is about communication, about the intellect, the mind. You've been with the big ideas, you've been with the faith, you've been with the philosophies, you've been, maybe in past lives, maybe you were drawn to travel or drawn to different cultures. And now you're kind of honing that in and making a statement in your environment, in your community, right? Could be writing a book, right? Starting to bring that into that third house. So you are learning how to redefine the intellect and the rational mind. And then the south node in the third house, the north node in the ninth house. You had too much emphasis on the mind, right? We're just flip-flopping it. And now we are learning how to find faith, find philosophy, starting to separate ourselves from the mind so much and learning that there's more out into the world.
And how to feel through it.
Yes. You're learning, if you are scared to leave your environment, or you've always been, you know, in the same town, but something inside of you has always wanted to draw out into, you know, another country or other cultures, you know, that's where you're growing.
Mhm.
Those are where we would say your soul will be happiest, right? Because that's what we're growing towards. The fourth house, north node, fourth house, south node, 10th house. You've come from a place of public acclaim, right? You've made a name for yourself in a past life. And now you're growing the skills at home. You're kind of like, you know, the fourth house is the most midpoint of the chart, right? It's the bottom of the chart. It's where you are concentrating on home and hearth, pulling inward. In that fourth house, finding, you know, wisdom through the emotions, finding that fulfillment there. The south node in the fourth house, the north node in the 10th house, you've withdrawn, right? I'm exaggerating. You've lived as a hermit, right? You know, you've lived in this quiet manner, and now it's time to find that fulfillment through career, going out there, getting in, you know, I'm saying the public eye, but it could just be developing a career, in that 10th house.
Something bigger than your inner circle.
Correct, exactly. Or your home life, you know? The 5th house, the north node in the 5th house, the south node in the 11th house, you are growing in fulfillment of your self-expression. So this also plays a role as I go through these. Like if you have the north node in Leo, this would still apply, right? Okay. So it's still that 5th house, that sense of self-expression. You are developing your desires, you're developing your creativity. You're learning how to be less concerned with friends, right? Your friends, that 11th house, they've taken you far, right? You've relied on them. Maybe you have a great group of friends, but now you're learning how to develop your own independence, and not being so dependent upon, you know, that past life. Relying on friends, you're standing on your own strength and obtaining your own goals for your successful life. The south node in the 5th house, the north node in the 11th house, so we're flipping them. You're learning that satisfaction is no longer going to come from what you desire, right? It's now you're leaning towards the other people. You're learning how to allow friends to become family, expanding your group, expanding your networking. Friends will bring more satisfaction, goals, groups. That is where you're going to feel that sense of success and fulfillment. Your north node in the 6th house and the south node in the 12th house. You know, the north node is in the 6th, is about the service to others. So that 12th house, you know, we're isolated. And that is where we have this self-undoing. So the time that you had in this past life that you wanted to retreat, or you don't want to be part of society, you know, now you're learning how to give to others, be part of society, service others, through work. Usually it's through work, in that 6th house. 6th and 12th, I usually find a lot of people who work in healthcare.
Gotcha.
Yeah. 6th house, south node, north node, 12th house. You know, you work with those less fortunate, right? You're working with people who may be in the hospitals or prisons. You know, anywhere that I've even had clients that they actually work, like, they don't ever talk to anybody. You know what I mean? Like they're like they're isolated jobs. Yes.
Wow.
You know, in this placement with the south node and the 6th, you know, the south node and the 6th could identify with negative health conditions, right? So because the 6th and the 12th are health houses.
Gotcha.
And now what you're learning how to do is to find fulfillment through the peace of mind, right? So now you might start to meditate. So instead of concerning so much of yourself on, you know, being overly worried about your health, you're learning through that 12th house north node maybe to meditate, find that peace of mind, that sense of calm and center, right? Versus worrying about, you know, the ailments of the body.
Right.
And identifying with that.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
So yeah, so it's a quick rundown of the nodal axis. During our workshop, I'm going to look at kind of like sometimes we have a hard aspect, sometimes we have easy aspects that kind of help us through or hinder us where we have to work a little bit harder.
Which would depend on like what signs they're in and where other, planetary alignments are. Oh my goodness, I finally sat down today and now I'm yawning. So like other planetary alignments and transits and how that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a little bit more Venus to ride through.
We do.
And then we have this conversation about the nodes to have at the end of September.
Yeah.
The workshop is September 29th. It's at 6:30 here at the studio.
Yeah.
We will be reaching out because if you're signed up for that, we do have people signed up already.
We do. Yes.
That's exciting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do have people signed up. There'll be practice that, will, carry the theme of the prenatal eclipse. We'll have discussion. I'll have charts. I think we're going to send a mass email so that I get everybody's birth dates.
Right.
And then I would like, because it's fun, I would like at least one extra birth date, just so we can see,
a special
someone to see where they fall. And this is really important. And I do love this when it comes to synastry. And I will talk about this because it's the Venus retrograde. And I've been looking at charts, kind of playing with it. People come into our life that feel so easy. You're like, man, I feel like I've known this person forever. It's probably because they have sat at your South Node. Because it's probably some past life connection.
Right.
Whatever that connection is, I don't know. But they've sat at your South Node. And then there's people who sit at your North Node. And those are the people who I think that you know in your gut, you're a little nervous, right? Because it's not familiar. They challenge you. So
maybe you don't even like them.
Sometimes, right? There's something there.
I've learned a lot from the people I don't like.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we're kind of like stuck with them. We can't just.
Yes, I would. Yeah, I feel like those North Node aspects, though, they might be there to teach you temporary. You know what I mean? Temporarily, and that's why I know that synastry. When you look at relationships, and I see people who have a South Node connection, and I'm like, but then I look at the North and I'm like, okay, you have something that kind of like balances it out because you want to grow.
Right.
You want to grow. My Venus retrograde story, I looked at the prenatal eclipse and their prenatal eclipse squares my nodal axis. Their prenatal eclipse, my sun, squares that axis. So that means that we call it like a bending, right? You have a choice. That is basically what it's doing. The choice is, do you go with what you know, or do you go with what is unfamiliar? And people do this, right? We meet people in our lives that challenge us. So it'll be fun to see at the prenatal eclipse how different people kind of sit in our life. Now, I'm looking.
Just in case you're listening to this, when she says birth date, she means the birth date, time and city.
If you don't know your time, please just tell me you don't know your time. It will change things. So, if you're planning on taking a workshop, start digging for that birth time.
Yeah, get your birth time and your birthplace. Yeah. And have all of that for your special person too. Yeah. Get your homework together. That's your homework.
Yeah.
And then you can register for that anytime.
Yeah, register. We're gonna send a mass email, collect all the birthdays, get charts. I will work up your chart, and we'll go over your charts while we're here in class. Pen and paper for sure.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah,
that's a great offering.
So it'll be fun.
It'll be fun. And it's really fun to get together with other people and hash things over. Like I learn a lot from that. You're this, you're that, you got this, you're that, and then you can kind of like learn.
Yeah.
And connect with it.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's a Venus retrograde, so I anticipate a lot of Venus stories.
Yeah.
I know that there's been lots of Venus stories in my own life. So, and everybody's experiencing me in different ways.
Right. And we're not supposed to become perfect through all this. We're just kind of here to
No,
become and stay in process.
it's a beautiful time to just observe, you know?
Oof, yeah.
And
Yeah.
to, what did he say? And to kind of just sit with it.
Yeah.
So, it can be challenging, but it's
You reach
wonderful
a
too.
stage where you can stretch to accommodate the truth of your lived experience. That's what we're doing. We're stretching to accommodate the truth of our lived experience.
Yeah.
Love that.
Should we see if our prenatal eclipses match?
We should.
We should, where we
fall.
should do this. We should.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna do this off camera. Okay. Yeah, you can see her forever. You can see her all day. All right. Thank you for following.
Thank you.
Click like, subscribe, comment, share.
And hopefully we see you at the workshop.
I'd love that. Come into the Lisa's class on Wednesdays at 5 also.
And we talk about this stuff.
Yeah,
too.
we talk about it, put it in practice, put it in body practice.
Yeah.
All right, namaste, friends.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.